if you want to support the show, you can go to mwpnews.com/support, where you can pick up my latest book, Succession Planning, and all my other books that have previously been released on Kindle for only $2.99 each. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Backlog Files. I am Adam on this. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow. I'm recording this Monday night. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow. I don't know why I started going down that path. Anyway, hi, how are we doing? I'm tired, as you can tell. So, we're here to talk about Pokémon Crystal today. Gen 2 is the shortest, I think, of the generations. Because if you think about it, it's like it started in 2000. By 2003, we already have Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So, it was really not a huge time. Plus, I fucked up and we did Puzzle Challenge before this. So, here we are, dealing with the ramifications of my error. Point of the matter is, we're on Crystal. Next week we have Stadium 2, and then we're on to Gen 3, which kind of we start getting into the fun era of Pokemon. Where we get all the spin-offs and fun things like that. And I played through Crystal fairly recently. I have some thoughts. I think that Crystal is the first time we really start to see the story shift in a meaningful way with the third version. Like, I would argue the story changes that happen in this aren't the biggest. It's not like, as we get down the line with, like, Platinum and like that, the story is, like, vastly different. Here it's kind of the same. And I think that comes from the fact that in Gold and Silver even, we don't get, we don't get a ton of story that directly pertains to the legends. The idea of doing a singular story that has to do with it comes from the fact that the cover legends for later games are tied in deeply to the narrative. Where it's like, okay, so we need that middle ground because, we need that. Where it's like, when we look at, like, why people wanted a Pokemon Z after Pokemon X and Y was Xerneas. Xerneas was the, the creation Pokemon. Yveltal was the Y Pokemon, that was destruction. And Zygarde, the Z, was balance between the two. So it's a cool idea that you have these things, and it gives you a reason to do the story slightly differently in the third time. Emerald is you're not following Groudon, who creates land, or Kyogre, who creates the ocean. You're following Rayquaza, who sees the fighting between the two and breaks it up, which is why it's kind of the definitive version of that story. The same with the creation or the going to the distortion world in Platinum. The idea that we're not going to go back, we're not going to deal with time travel, we're not going to deal with space warping, we're going to go into, the distortion world, and we're going to see if we can modify that for our own being. And it's an interesting kind of alternate take on it that incorporates the third legend with the others. Now, there was no third legend when it came to Ho-Oh and Lugia. Lugia, we talked about in the past, was kind of the trio master for Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos, as established in the movie 2000, and Ho-Oh was just kind of there. He was this, thing that you would see in the sky, and it would wish you a good travel. At the same time, there wasn't too much lore with the dogs, Suicune, Entei, Raikou, and we did also have the, Celebi was in the code, Celebi being Pokemon 251, and Celebi being this kind of, time travel thing. There's a shrine to it, but we don't really get anything too much out of it. And I wouldn't consider, Celebi to be the third one to them. So where do you go with the story here? And the answer is Crystal is very much centered around Suicune. And I think they do a good job of tying in the arrival of Ho-Oh and Lugia and your encounters with them into the story in that regard. I do find it interesting that they work in this legendary Pokemon in this way, or pseudo legend in the way so far. This is also the first time you get to choose a gender. You can play as Chris instead of playing as the boy, and that's kind of cool as well. But the game is kind of the same. My one thing about this that I think makes it less enjoyable is I think the game is less balanced than the first one. And we talked about it a little bit with Gold and Silver. This idea of balancing out the availability of Pokemon and balancing out the level curve. Like I pick when I played this, I picked to play as like I started out with Cyndaquil because Cyndaquil is my boy. The issue is it's like if you want to get an electric Pokemon early on in the game, which I'm prone to do, it's not available. Because I go through and it's like, the nice discovery, because I hadn't played this before I played it recently, is Poliwag being available early in the game as a catchable Pokemon. So, okay, you got that. You got your Cyndaquil, you got your little fire dude, and then you keep going through. You get, you can get a ghost type pretty early. Bellsprout's available pretty early, so you got nice coverage. If you want electric, though, you're kind of fucked, because I like Mareep. Because Mareep, you get Ampharos, and Ampharos is a fucking G. The issue is, it's not available in this game at all. So you're just kind of stuck. And then as you go through, there's really no good electric type to get as you go through until you get to the rocket base where you can get an Electrode. So you're just kind of stuck. Oh no, you can get Magnemite, I guess, but at that point you're already past the Ghost Gym, which is kind of sucky. It would have been cooler if you could have gotten Mareep earlier. And again, I think that this game does suffer the most from having probably the weakest level curve of any game, and it's just a Gen 2 problem that didn't even get fixed in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That said, I do still love the story a lot. I do still love the way you play through this. I love going back to Kanto after. Everything that I said about the first one stands here. And I think saying Pokemon selection as a reason to put it lower doesn't feel fair, because the Pokemon selection is an issue in the first two games as well. Depending on which game you pick, you will end up with some that are version exclusive, which is why you end up like, if you were a kid like me when you were playing this, and I would have been, this came out in 2001 when Gold and Silver came out, so I would have been like 6-7 years old. I mean, we didn't really use the internet at that point. It's not like now. When you get to Gen 3, it's like, oh, I thought that Skarmory was a new Pokemon because I only had Gold. I never had Silver. I just thought Skarmory was an entirely new Pokemon. And I'm like, oh shit, this Metal Bird is cool. But no, it was a Silver exclusive Pokemon. The same goes for like, what was the other one? Slugma, which I don't think was in Gold, or I just never encountered it. Marl, because Marl was so rare, and then Marl was so plentiful in Ruby and Sapphire. Again, another situation like that. So, I guess we wrap up here for today. I think that what we're going to say for this is that this is the new number one, with Crystal taking over the top slot. And I think that, we're going to get to a point where we're going to stop doing this soon. I think that we're, because our ranking so far, let me pull up the ranking. Number 1, Gold, Silver. Number 2, Yellow. Number 3, Snap. Number 4, Stadium. Number 5, Red, Blue. Number 6, Trading Card Game. Number 7, Puzzle Challenge, Puzzle League. Number 8, Pinball. Number 9, Hey You, Pikachu. So our new number 1 is Pokemon Crystal. And I think that this is a number 1 that's going to stand until we get to Ruby and Sapphire, which is going to unseat it. Then we're going to get to Emerald, which is going to unseat that. And then we'll get through and see what we got from there. Yeah, I look forward to doing this. This week we'll also be doing Garden Life, a Cozy Simulator on Friday, so get ready for that. And then we will wrap up there for today. So until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.